I know that you all love the S-Ship's Decimate Aquarium just as much as I do, which is exactly why I went out and bought a second one. As for the condition of this S-Ship's Decimate Florida Aquarium, I'm going to take you guys through every single step we do to clean it, so that way you can see how it started and how it ends. First off, we've got some junk in the rear chamber as expected. So back here, there's some algae to clean off. You can see we've got some little things growing on the glass here that we got to scrape off. Let's move around to the top of the aquarium. Here you can see that the Euro bracing has a little bit of algae that we got to scrape off. Algae is really easy to get off of an aquarium. It really shouldn't be that big of a deal, so I'm not too concerned about the algae itself. As for the walls of the aquarium, you can see here that we've got quite a bit of work to do, quite a bit of algae to scrub off here. As for the bottom of the aquarium, you can see there's quite a bit of work for us to do, quite a lot of cleanup that's needed down there. Oh no! And even the back wall here looks like it definitely is going to need some help. Some of the common signs you'll see with a used tank is where things like a power head used to be. We can see here that the suction cup was there, and there's also some scratches throughout this aquarium's glass, so we'll go ahead and clean all that up and get this aquarium looking good as new. One thing to be careful with is the S-Ship's logo on the front. As for the masking tape we're going to be using, this here is delicate masking tape from Frog Tape. It is really not that sticky, which is exactly what we want. So we'll peel a piece of that off. We'll cover up our Deskmate logo up here on the top, and then the other logo in the bottom right. Alrighty, our logos are now covered. We're gonna go ahead and first do a pass with some distilled water on this aquarium. So the distilled water should help us get off any of the muck and just see what we're working with. Another helpful tool to have is paper towels. So I'm gonna put those right there. I've got my distilled water in a fancy little spray bottle like this. Doesn't have to be. And using paper towels, it could add a couple extra scratches to this aquarium, but we're actually going to use a scratch remover kit to buff out all those scratches. So it doesn't really matter what we clean the aquarium with at this point, as long as it's safe for acrylic, such as distilled water, or even a little bit of diluted white vinegar. So taking our water, we're gonna go ahead and start to spray this down. Make sure to remove any larger particulates from the tank. Take your paper towel and let's go ahead and start wiping this bad boy down just to see what we're left with. So already we've got some algae coming off. It's a good sign. Hopefully this aquarium will clean up better than we expect it to, because that means there'll be less work for us in the long run. So it looks like just our first pass, we're getting quite a bit of algae off of there. I do believe this aquarium was used for saltwater, but it's also possible that it could have been used for freshwater. So we don't really know. More algae, just to be expected. I'm going to go ahead and clean the side that's closest to me here. Now that I've cleaned all the edges of the aquarium, I'm going to go ahead and clean the bottom. The bottom you always want to save for last. You just want to make sure you rinse out any kind of like sand and stuff like that. So we're going to go ahead and do that first. So we've got the bottom all rinsed out. We're going to go ahead, wipe this some more with some paper towels. Okay, now the paper towel you use for the bottom, you just want to go ahead and chuck that, because you don't want to get any of that sand or anything anywhere else on the acrylic, because you're really going to scratch it up if you're doing that. I'm going to go ahead and rinse out the rear chamber now. All right, we've gone ahead and rinsed out the rear chamber. We'll see how much we can get wiped off back here, just because it is much harder to reach back here, and I have pretty large hands, so it's kind of hard to work in here. But we're going to go ahead, really get this all wiped down as best we can. Don't make sure not to miss the baffles if you can when you're wiping it down. You want to make sure you get everything there. And yeah, as I suspected, I can't really get in the rear chamber. So we're going to go ahead and grab a pair of tweezers and use that to hold this. So here we have some carbon fiber tweezers. I'm going to use that to hold onto this. And now I can reach all the way back in there and clean this out, which is good. This aquarium's actually looking really clean now. Also, I would advise not to set your tweezers down on your kitchen counter, because you don't know if there's any detergents or anything that have been used on that. So I'm going to go ahead and rinse these off with some RO water. The next step here, we want to go ahead and get the rim of the aquarium. So I'm just going to go ahead, wipe this down real quick. You can really get in there and be real aggressive with it, because like I said, we're going to buff and polish this whole acrylic aquarium here in just a little bit. Now the aquarium is in a really good state. It's looking really, really nice and clean. There is some minimal damage to the black, tape here on each side. So that is something where we could always get more vinyl and put it on the sides there to fix that. Now I'm going to go ahead and do one more pass with some vinegar, just to really get this aquarium clean, get rid of any odors, things like that, and make sure this is as clean as possible before we move on to the next step. Now this is where most people would stop and say, okay, that's clean enough for me. We're good to go. Put some water in it. I'm going to go a step further. I really want this aquarium to be brand new. I want it to be as clean as it would be from the factory. So right now, just looking through it, I can see on the bottom there's a ton of scratches. On the sides, there's actually a bunch of scratches. So let me take you guys through that, and I'll show you how we're gonna go ahead and get rid of those scratches. So here we can see just how many scratches there really are in this aquarium. So quite a bit. You can see there's a lot of rounded scratches, but there's also scratches like this where it looks like, you know, possibly a rock really got that acrylic good. And we're gonna go ahead and, like I said, we're gonna remove all those in today's video. How we're getting rid of those scratches is this Novus Scratch Repair Kit. This is not an aquarium product, however, it is designed for refinishing plastics like acrylic. First things first, we've already wiped out the aquarium, so I'm pretty sure we got any kind of sand in here that would cause more scratches, but we really wanna rinse this out just to make sure we get every last piece of sand in there from the previous setup. I've gone ahead and rinsed this aquarium out again. You might be able to see some of the scratches through the base here. We're gonna test on the base of the aquarium and see how many scratches we can get rid of on the base before we try it on the sides. To start our process here, we're gonna take Novus Heavy Scratch Remover. This is the first step, which these used to be labeled step 3, 2, and then 1, which was kind of backwards, but they've taken those numbers off of the bottles, but you'll start with heavy scratch, then move the fine scratch, then move to the clean stage there. So the heavy scratch removal kit is going to say that this product can separate, so you need to shake it well. Then you need to use a lint-free, you know, nice clean cloth and do back and forth motions at a 90-degree angle, so just perpendicular to the scratches. And then other than that, you just have to keep polishing until only fine scratches remain. Now we get into the fun stuff. Let's take this aquarium and put some of the heavy scratch remover in here. So I'm gonna just put some on the bottom. Oh, I guess it probably has a little seal, huh? So let's put a little bit of the Novus Heavy Scratch Remover in the base here. And I did go with the 8-ounce bottles here, just if you were curious. They do make a 2-ounce version, and the 2-ounce version is meant for smaller applications, like if you have a headlight on a car, for example, something like that. So I went ahead and got the 8-ounce just to see. And I'm gonna separate these little napkins into pieces just so I can get more time with them, you know, more out of them probably. So we'll just rip off a little cloth here and use this. People said that this could take a while. If you guys are curious, Than from Tidal Gardens has a channel, or used to have a channel, called Advanced Reef Aquarium. Gosh, it was like probably 10 or 11 years ago. And he used Novus Aquarium Cleaner all the way back then. So that's kind of where I discovered the product. And using it here, we're going to test and see just how well it works. In his video, it worked really good, so I have really high expectations, expecting really good results from this. Now, one thing the instructions do say is to do back and forth motions. It does not mention doing any kind of circular motion or anything like that. And I'm assuming the pressure you want here is pretty decent. You don't want to have like you don't want to just like weakly buff this. Like you want to have a pretty serious amount of pressure on here, is at least what I'm trying to do. I'm also doing some of the Novus repair on the outside of the tank. So my thoughts are that some of the scratches are on the outside and some are on the inside, obviously. So running the scratch repair on the outside is probably just as important as running it on the inside. Honestly, I can actually see some of the scratches on the bottom. As I'm going over them, you can see them like start to disappear a little bit. So this is definitely working so far. So the problem with this, we're probably going to go through paper towels like a, like a truckload. All right, I'm gonna keep going away at this, guys. I'll let you know when I get to step 2 and then to step 1, and we'll see the results on just the bottom. All right, I went ahead and I did level 2 and level 3 on this aquarium. So as you can see, it's pretty clear. It did get a lot of the scratches out. There are a lot of bigger scratches in here, and by bigger, I mean like my fingernail can get stuck in them. So they've been created from rocks that have been scraping along the bottom of the tank. So we're gonna go ahead now and do another wall, and we're gonna try these just to kind of give you guys a little more insight on these. So the level 3 is like a cream. It's like almost like as if you did toothpaste on something. And the level 2 is almost like a clay, so kind of like a soft wet clay. And you do level 2 in a swirling motion until it's dry. And this less is more because it takes a while to dry, especially if your aquarium's a little damp like mine is, so watch out for that. And then level 1, the final step here, you just spray it on, do some circles until it's dry, and then it's all polished up. So I'm really curious to see how these do on the front of the aquarium, because there is a bunch of scratches that are like micro scratches, like where something was used to wipe this down that was a little abrasive. So we'll go ahead and see how these do on the front. I do want to come in here and clarify that the heavy scratch remover was not enough to remove the heaviest scratches in this acrylic aquarium. I did have to resort to a 1500 grit sandpaper. So this is a 3M sandpaper that is a wet dry sandpaper. That's extremely important because if you don't get the wet dry sandpaper, it will disintegrate on you almost immediately. The wet dry sandpaper has a canvas, like a waxy back to it, so it does stay completely intact while wet. And you do want the sandpaper to be wet when sanding the acrylic, otherwise you'll just add really deep scratches to your acrylic, where the wet sanding really helps to buff out those heavy scratches, and then you can go in with level 3 and level 2 and really knock out those scratches. I would say using the 1500 grit sandpaper, and you could even go 2000 grit if you want, but using the 1500 grit sandpaper saved me probably about 2 or 3 hours of using the heavy scratch remover there in the kit, because the heavy scratch remover just was taking forever to get out some of these deeper scratches. Here the aquarium is completely finished. All the heavy scratches are gone. The aquarium really does look brand new. So just some tips and things that I learned. You'll catch in the fast sped up parts of the video that I actually started using the apple polishing cloths for the final step. That's because acrylic is really easy to scratch. So when you're doing that final stage of finishing the aquarium, you want to use like a really soft microfiber cloth. Some people even say microfiber scratch acrylic, so just be careful. Use a very soft cloth to do that final stage. You'll also want to use 1500 grit sandpaper, like I mentioned earlier in the video, before doing step 3. And I would say step 3 is the step that I used the most. So I used step 3 probably for about, 10, 12 hours. And then I used step 2 probably 2 or 3 hours, and then step 1 for like 10 or 15 minutes. So if I were to do it again, I'd buy a giant bottle of step number 3, and then for the heavy scratches, and then buy a normal size 8-ounce bottle of the level 2 scratch remover, the fine scratch remover, and then the smallest bottle of the level 3, the polishing step. And that would make this aquarium look good as new. So here you can see what we started with, and here's the final product, guys. So if you liked today's video, please leave a like, please subscribe. It helps me so much. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you on the next one.